Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the inaugural installment of Commander Culture. We're here talking about all things that relate to culture, that relate to civilization, specifically Western civilization, and what we can do to keep it rolling forward. We're going to be joined a little bit later by Mr. Brown, a regular guest. But until he gets here, I think we are just going to talk a little bit about the events of the day, the week, the month. I hope everybody had a good Christmas, a happy holidays, and that we go into the new year looking for a better 2021 than we had 2020. There were ups and there were downs, but I think that overall, everything that we do, everything that we go through, is a learning experience. We have challenges and we rise to those challenges. And to the extent that we are not able to rise to those challenges, we learn where we can improve. We learn what we need to do to keep going forward. We don't stop. We don't give up. We don't become demoralized. We don't become dejected. We keep putting one foot in front of the other. When I think about our progress, for lack of a better word, I think about our ancestors. You know, these people who were nomads, people who were, you know, cavemen in essence. Okay, they couldn't stop what they were doing. They couldn't get dejected. They couldn't, feel sorry for themselves. They just had to get up and do exactly what they were going to do to survive. Now, I'm sure that there were those who didn't, and they were weeded out of the genetic population probably fairly quickly. You don't think of a lot of angsty teens that were Neanderthals or Cro-Magnons or whatever, um, roaming the forests of Eurasia. And we have that same spirit. We have to be able to look at what's going on and realize that it's a it's a battle, and every day that we battle, we gain experience points. Right? I'm showing my proclivities in my youth for role playing games, but this is really true. You get experience points when you go through life. You face a challenge, and we're all facing challenges today. We look at what's going on in the political sphere. We can talk about that for a while. President Trump, what's going to happen in the next week? What's going to happen in the next 3 weeks? Where are we going to be a month from now, January 30th? There are people out there who believe that it's a foregone conclusion that President-select Biden will accede to the White House and the American throne. And there are those of us who hope that enough of the Constitution is respected throughout the land that President Trump will remain in power. We'll see. We'll see. But either way, it presents an opportunity for us. If Trump keeps control of the White House, then we go on the offensive. If Biden takes the White House, then we go on the defensive, which doesn't mean that we hunker down and hide. It means that we begin preparing for an attack. The defense is about preparing to be attacked. And so much of this fight that we've been in, this culture war, has been us not even acknowledging that we're in a fight. It's like walking down Sniper's Alley in Sarajevo, imagining that you are, shopping for flowers on Valentine's Day or something, and not hearing the bullets whizzing around you and the people dropping to the right and left. But we're in a war right now. We don't know whether we're going to be on the offense or the defense. Let's talk about offense a little bit. Don't get too excited. We're talking political offense. We're talking legal offense. When Trump wins, we as culture warriors, we as Western chauvinists need to make sure that our institutions are protected. That is, the voting franchise needs to be protected from attacks like it was subjected to here in 2020. Um, we need to protect ourselves from deplatforming. We need to protect ourselves from being financially cut off. We need to protect ourselves from being the victims of lawfare. And, in the same manner as Nick Sandman, I think, we have to kind of look at ourselves as, how are we going to approach the next 4 years, the next year? Okay, Corona aside, the economic woes that are coming, sure, aside, because everything is downstream from culture. Now, there are positives that we can see in the culture war. We can see the utter and abject failures in Hollywood. Now that the miracle of the Chinese flu has ravaged our land, people are able to see Hollywood for what it really is, more than they were before, more like we were, and have been, as a hostile occupying force. Why are they pushing these kind of agendas? Why why have we been subjecting ourselves to watching this? People ask themselves, and they turn it off. We see this with the new Wonder Woman movie that was, by all accounts, a complete disaster. We see this with the Lego Star Wars movie that was, a slap in the face to everything heroic about Star Wars. People are sort of turning their backs on it. They have better things to do. They can spend time with their family now, and they realize the value in that. They can't spend time with their family, and so they plot the time when they are going to be able to actually visit grandma, or find other means to contact aunt and uncle that they haven't talked to in a while, right? So we're not, our time seems to be less and less taken up with meaningless busy work. At least mine is. Meaningless busy work goes by the wayside. What really matters? People. What really matters? Family. What really matters? The time that you have with the people that you love. With all apologies to people who have been crippled or know people who have passed away from Corona, as far as pandemics go, historically speaking, this is one that's extremely mild, and that's a blessing. We can look at the situation around us, and we have the ability to sort of say, wait a minute, is this the direction that we really want our civilization going? Is this the direction that we want ourselves, our individual person, to be going? What's really important? And we come back to the values that we find at the core of our being. What is that? It's culture. Okay. And once we understand what that is, once we hold that in our hand, we can see this is valuable. This is something worth holding on to. This is the people around me. This is the values that I hold, the understandings that I have, the way I see the world. And then we can see and feel everyone around us trying to chip away at it. SJWs, Hollywood, the Uniparty in Washington, and every commercial that we watch is an affront to our senses, and we say, nah, I don't think so. That's not the direction that I want to go. Well, we don't have to go that way. Like I said, we are now engaged in a culture war. We're no longer the dazed individual wandering down Sniper Alley. We are now situationally aware. We now see and understand the directions that these attacks are coming from. We also see and hear that we're not alone. We're not just individuals floating around in the ether. We're a community, okay? Whether we're a community of one person with a strong core set of ideals, whether we're a couple, um, moving through life as a man and a woman, whether we're a family, nuclear family, or a larger family unit, whether we're a village or a city or an entire nation, okay? We see that we're connected. We feel that we're connected. And for the first time, we realize that we have something that is worth fighting for. And I'm here to tell you that the battle has been joined. Okay? The battle has been joined. We have people high and low that are now entering the battlefield. People in politics, people in culture, people here on YouTube, people around us. And our job now is to join our voices to the chorus. Our job now is to enter their ranks as a soldier of civilization, as a soldier of culture. We I'm not going to sit here and give you dictionary definitions of what our culture, American culture, European culture, Western culture, or Western civilization is, but you know in your heart what it is. You know in your heart what is right. You know in your heart what heroism is. You know in your heart what beauty is, and truth and honor and these sort of values. And you can see that they're under attack. Well, not for long. Um, Not for long. When the battle has been joined, we will win. Um, Western civilization, in its different forms, has been steadily improving the life of the humans in whom it's come into contact with in the aggregate for 2,000 or 3,000 years. And it will continue to do so because it aspires to the highest elements of human need and human desire: actual objective truth, observable beauty, and and it's sort of an intangible that I call goodness, right? Goodness, the goodness, where you can, feel the human connection between individuals, fictional and non-fictional. Captain Kirk and Spock, right? Um, you know, President Reagan, or when you look at him on the television, if you're one of the older people, people that aspire to something higher, that you can look up to, that you can work behind, work with, and work behind. Anyway, um, that's what I want to do here, is to talk about staying moralized and staying remoralized, and understanding that you yourself as an individual has a function in this greater culture war, large or small. We all do. Okay, every single SJW that opposes us, every single one of these minor demons, believes that they are infinitely important. You know, This person who sits there in their beanie cap and their green shirt screaming at the sky because Donald Trump was elected, or these people that sit there in their shirts that say that the force is female, each one of these mediocrities believes that they themselves are changing the course of history in an epic way. Well, they're not. But there's no reason that we, as as opposed to them, cannot fulfill an equally important role. Okay? And that's what I think a lot of people miss. We look for that big leader. We wait for the great general or the great president or somebody to come in, but it starts from the ground up. That's what a revolution is all about. Revolutions never start from the top. They always swell from the ground and change the culture in that particular direction, and that's where we're going. I think Mr. Brown may be here. If he would like to jump in, I can add him to the stream, and we can get his words of wisdom from across the pond. Add him to the stream here. Mr. Brown, are you there?
Hello, sir. How are you?
Oh, good, good. Thank you for joining us this evening.
That was a great monologue.
Was it?
It was.
Well, I hope I wasn't repeating myself too much.
No, you did okay. You did okay. I think everybody kind of understands where you're coming from.
Mm-hmm.
I would just add this. I think the biggest problem with the world society, with any kind of war or any kind of movement, is the fundamental thing that is wrong with everything is it all boils down to us and them.
Mm-hmm.
Once we get past us and them, where it's we, all of us,
Mm-hmm.
I think we might be in a better place. But everything is just so diversive. And this, as I said to you the other day, this just goes back hundreds of years with political systems that are diversive.
Mm-hmm.
So, as I said, we are no different than what we were, say, 500 years ago, apart from we've got flush toilets, technology, tablets, etc., and everything's
Nuclear weapons.
That's progress.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
no,
progress.
I agree. But I think the way I look at it is more in terms of critical mass, I guess you could say, because as much as as a fan of Star Trek, for example, want the kind of future that's envisioned there, where everyone is on the same page and everyone's working in the same direction, even if they're not at the same level, they're all working to better themselves as best they can.
Yes.
My observation, the pessimist in me now comes out. My observation of human nature is that there will always be a percentage of people, who are petty, who are backwards looking, who are vindictive and jealous and just ill, I guess you could say. And the goal, I think, of this culture war is to sideline their influence to the maximum extent possible. And I think.
So, do you think "ill" is a slightly strong word? They may say the same about you.
Well, this is true. But they're
again. It's boiling down to this us and them. See, I try to see both sides.
Mm-hmm.
I try to. As I said to you the other day, over the years I've become more centrist.
Mm-hmm.
And as I said, we need something to work for everybody, not just for So it really is boiling down to that us and them stuff. And maybe as a species, we're far too immature to see the bigger picture at the moment. I don't know.
I definitely would agree with that. If anything, I think that our technological marvels consistently outstrip our moral and ethical
Oh
maturity.
yes. Oh yes.
Um, and some of our greatest minds, our greatest scientists consistently warn about this, whether it's, Stephen Hawking talking about having to get off the planet,
Yeah.
Albert Einstein saying, I don't think we should be messing with these nuclear weapons. Roboticists and AI scientists now saying, hey guys, I think maybe we should back off a little bit because this is going to get real weird here. And
Yeah.
genetic science, that's, I shudder to think that where, the kind of experiments that are going on in genetic science now without any sort of oversight from, or moral
Okay.
guidelines,
Yeah. Yeah.
ethical guidelines. But, I think, okay, so here, let me boil down my philosophy on this, because
Please do.
I,
Please
I,
do.
I do I do agree with you, and I want to be on the same page as you as far as the us versus them thing. Because the last thing I want to do, I am a peaceful commander. I don't want to be out there,
It's the way to be.
directing gunfire, or in a battle.
Yeah.
But the thing is that I think prosperity. This is the lesson of history to me. Is that prosperity brought on by stability and civilizational success tends to breed, um, uh, you know, I'll call it an illness. Okay.
Okay. Okay.
And this is where you get people who, because people are creative, people are productive. And when you get to a point in a society, whether you're talking about the Mayans or the Romans or the, you know, Ming Dynasty Chinese or modern America, if you get to a certain point in a society where you feel like, you can't contribute materially
Okay.
because things have gotten so advanced, now you try to change things societally, or you try to change things in a social or political or way like that.
Right.
And it starts to destabilize the civilization, right? And that's where I think people like you and I come in, is where we say, no, 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 we don't need to destabilize this, right? We had it just about perfect, although nothing can be perfect, right about here.
Okay.
This is how I see it. And there was a point several decades ago, where race relations were very calm, across the Western world. There was a
Okay.
point several decades ago where intersex relations, between men and women, were very calm.
I would agree with that. Yes.
There was a point, after World War II, when and even after the Cold War, when economic relations and parity were very calm. There wasn't a lot of want. There wasn't a lot of dislocation
Okay.
in the economies of the Western world, and there were elements, there were people who sought to destabilize that. And I'm not here to say necessarily who that was, but I think that people on the lower end of the spectrum, these would be the
Right.
SJW
Okay.
minions,
Yeah.
right, are part of that. But then you have globalist people who said, "Oh, hey, I can take advantage of this stability. I can just come in and loot this system." Kind of. I don't know if you read H.G. Wells' Time Machine, right? But you had this like dual group of people. You had the Eloi and the Morlocks, and the Eloi were just these peaceful, kind of utopian, idyllic people who just sat in the perfect existence,
Okay.
and they were preyed upon by this subterranean race who used them as meat, right? And that's sort of what I see happening is the vast majority of our civilization has sort of reached this point where we're just like, oh, nothing can possibly go wrong. Oh, everything is happy. Nothing bad is going to happen to me or
Right.
my kids or my grandkids. And you have people coming in and saying, look at those suckers. They don't know they're sitting at a poker table. I'm going to take them for all they're worth. Look at these suckers. They don't know that they're playing a zero sum game. They think that that they're just living this perfect idyllic existence, and that
Do you?
piracy, it
Yeah.
destabilizes the
Okay.
society.
Yeah. Do you? When you get to a certain age,
Hmm.
you you've kind of lived your life, and you hopefully are hoping to be happy with your lot in life. Would you agree?
Yes, yes. You've achieved to the level that you feel that you can and want to achieve to, and then you want to protect what you have
And
created.
then you kind of realize that the days are shorter than they are longer, etc., etc.
Hmm.
And as I said, you're happy with your lot in life. Do you feel these people are just coming in? And would you agree? Would you agree? We think, well, they're obviously young people, because or younger people. Would you agree with that, or people?
Well, I think that the young people are easily manipulated.
Right. Okay. I was thinking that
Younger,
myself.
yeah,
Yes.
younger people haven't. Many of them, not all of them, but many of them haven't developed the emotional maturity that
Yeah.
is commensurate with either their physical maturity
Okay.
or their economic maturity, even. Um, and I think that they're taken advantage of by more cynical people who sort of. So you've got so you've got you and I, Mr. Brown, sitting underneath an apple tree that our
Yeah.
grandparents planted. I keep
Okay.
coming back to this metaphor, but it means so much to me. Now you have somebody standing up on a hill with, and he's yelling down at these other kids who may not have an apple tree or not as big of an apple tree. And he says, hey, why don't you go and cut down that apple tree? And by the way, sell the wood to me at a profit because those guys have something that you don't. Right. And whereas we're saying to these kids, these SJWs or whatever you want to call them, saying, hey, here's a seed, plant your own. I'll help you water it. I'll help you trim it. I'll help you,
Well,
cultivate this thing. But the
I don't want to wait. I want it now.
right, they want it now, and they'd rather be, they'd rather get the emotional fulfillment of taking something that's someone else's, destroying something that's someone else's. It's that you see that in the playground,
Yeah, yeah,
where
yeah,
one
yeah, yeah,
one
yeah,
kid
yeah.
will kick over another
I
kid's
was thinking that. I
sandcastle.
was thinking that it's effectively it's just bullying.
Right, right. And here's and this is where the culture aspect comes in, because in our culture, in what Western culture, Western civilization, Northern European civilization,
Yeah.
whatever, there's this idea of honor. There's this idea of if you want to call it chivalry, of fair play, where certain criteria has to be met before you can impose yourself on somebody else's liberty.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Okay.
and that idea is being slowly eroded, where now it's like simply by existing, I, as a white male, am a microaggression to somebody that I've never even met before, or as, somebody who has found a measure of success, economically in life with their career and hard work is somehow the recipient of a mystical, magical privilege that floats out of the air that didn't lay on them, but did
Okay.
lay on me. And therefore now I must feel guilty. And these sort of like almost magical ways of thinking, rational, philosophical, um, uh, argumentation, critical thinking, these sort of things
Yeah.
that are part of our culture, that are part of
Yeah.
our civilization, scientific inquiry, are disappearing. And in their place, you're getting sort of this totemic, atavistic, magical thinking about boogeymen, and science that must be believed. I put quotes around the word belief because those two words don't necessarily go together, but we're being told that they do, right?
Right.
Believe the science. I don't believe science. I believe evidence, which points to scientific theory. Evidence pointing to theory is something completely different than belief, and
Okay.
that's part. And so when those elements of our culture are swept away, well, then we may not be left with a culture, and that's what I think that we as a collective, if you want to use that word, have to defend.
A lot of these people who have made it in life are effectively just good organizers of
Uh huh.
people.
Uh huh.
And I would say a lot of them have just been in the right place at the right time.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of these people who get mega rich, I think there is a lot of luck involved,
Mm-hmm.
but there's probably a dogged determination of these people who they've just been in the right place,
Mm-hmm.
and they're just good at organizing stuff. And a lot of these people have got rich on other people's hard work, but
Right.
there's I would say these people are kind of few and far between, but they are. Yeah, I would say there's luck involved, but yeah, there is. They're just good organisers,
Mm-hmm.
and people can, get really peed off. They've got all this money and stuff like that, but I would imagine some people have got rich, and you look at them and think, how have they done that?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I can see why people get angry.
Right. Well, and you have, I mean, when you're talking about money or financial success, I think that there's a very distinct categorization of two different kinds of very wealthy people. You know, when you have somebody who's like a Russian oligarch,
Yeah,
somebody who made their wealth by graft and corruption and stealing it from people by means of government coercion.
yeah,
And I, not to impugn the Russians, because those sort of people exist in Britain, they exist in the United States, um, you know, and those people are beneath contempt.
yeah,
And should be rightfully called out. Whereas you have other people who came up with a good idea, or somebody who saw a pattern in the stock market,
yes,
and or somebody who saw a need for an industry, tourism, or electric cars or something like that, and you can say that person is um, legitimate, I
yeah,
guess,
yeah.
but I don't think that a lot of distinction is made a lot of the time between those two kinds of people. It's just sort of this random jealousy, anger. I mean, I'm not the richest person in the world by any
I'm not
wild
either.
stretch of the
I wish
imagination,
I
and,
was.
and right, and neither are you. But I don't think that we spend our days sort of looking at other people and saying, how can I take what they have, or how can I destroy what they have? Rather, we might say, well, I wish they would use their money a little bit better. So, for example, like in my case, I'll look at somebody like Mark Zuckerberg, CEO of Facebook, who basically got very lucky, probably, although not necessarily definitively, got in with one of the letter agencies, NSA or CIA, and then off he is to the races, and now he's a monopoly. Okay, and I don't think he uses his money particularly wisely. Whereas you take somebody like Elon Musk, right, the CEO of Tesla,
Yeah,
who's been just as the same, a recipient of massive government, funds shoveled his
yes,
direction, but
okay.
he's used his money in a much more productive way. Hey, let's go to outer space, he says. Hey,
I
let's
know.
make cars that actually that don't contribute to pollution, right? In the same way, let's make the world a better place. Now, is he like the greatest guy in the world? No. Would I take moral direction from him? No. But I'm saying, he's somebody who got money, probably more of my personal tax money than I would have just voluntarily given. But at the same
Okay.
time, I can agree that he's using his money a little bit better. I don't know. And this is why, so when I look at the two of them, for example, Zuckerberg and Elon Musk, I'm like, I prefer one over the other. Um,
I agree with that, yes. Why does Bill Gates get such a hard time?
um, well, Bill Gates is, okay, I think, I mean, there's a bunch of different ways to look at this. Bill Gates, I think, has always been, if you want to, reduce it down to bedrock, he's a nerd right?
Yeah.
And so he's not very people savvy.
Okay.
Most of his mistakes come from, or the dislike, I guess, that people have from him comes from his own inability to properly communicate with people. You could say
Okay.
Zuckerberg has the same problem. If he was more friendly, if he was more affable, if he was more able to communicate properly,
Yeah.
then there you go. He would be more liked. I think also, I think people have a lot of skepticism about his motives. Um, we kind of get into this as like exozone type territory, but I think
Yeah.
that a lot of
Yeah.
people kind of wonder about his why is he so obsessed with certain things. I mean, if I'm a okay, let's just say that I'm a billionaire philanthropist, nerd, Microsoft owner, right?
Yeah.
And I want to improve the lives of people all across the globe. Well, there's a lot that you can do. You can work on microloan banking. You can work on improving water,
Okay.
access to water. You can work on infrastructure. You can work on, reducing conflict in certain areas. There's a whole bunch of things you can do. But if I just come out and I say vaccines are the answer to literally everything, um, people are going to kind of go like, why? I mean, like, okay, but what about this other thing? No, 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 no. I'm going to spend all my time talking about this one solution.
Okay.
And so, if nothing else, he comes off as kind of monomaniacal, where he's just obsessed with this one thing, and people just kind of like, I don't like this guy, and I don't trust him, and he seems weird, even if his motives are perfectly right. So, I think that's why he gets a bad rap. It's the Zuckerberg sort of
What
treatment.
does Zuckerberg? What does he give his money to?
Um,
I'm
as
not
far
aware
as
of anything.
No, no, yeah, it's general leftist causes, and not much else.
Right.
So
Okay.
but he doesn't even use it for himself. I look at stuff and I'm like, wow, I would love to buy that castle. How come no billionaire has bought that castle? You know what I mean? Or that private island. It's like he just sort of he bought a property in Silicon Valley, and then he bought all the three houses on all sides of him, by basically just throwing $1 billion at each person, for their $100,000 house,
Wow.
and then so he could just live where he always lived, just with nobody else around him, except these
Okay.
empty houses. He's a bizarre individual. And like I say, in no way are these people our moral superiors, which is why when they're dictating morality in the form of banning, in the form of censorship, in the form of fact checking, it really comes off as distasteful.
Right. Okay. There seems to be a lot of dictating in many things. Hollywood, very good. I saw. You mentioned Wonder Woman. Yeah, I've seen the Wonder Woman film.
Did you see it? Look, I took the advice of the critical drinker, and I didn't waste the 2 hours of my life, 2.5 hours of my life. I
Oh
was
yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah. I won't get the 2.5 hours back.
no. Well,
Half an hour. I enjoyed half an hour of it, and
uh-huh,
I'll tell you why in a minute. Yeah, the rest of
sure.
it was like, ugh.
Well,
I
yeah, yeah. Go
sorry.
ahead. Sorry.
No, no, no. Go on. It's your
Well, I was just
chance.
going to say I like the components that make up that movie. I find Kristen Wiig to be amusing. I find Gal Gadot to be very attractive. I like Chris Pine as an actor. He's very personable, and relatable. Uh, you
Yeah.
know, um, and I like kind of '80s nostalgia stuff. But it just didn't seem like it was coming together. It was kind of like one of those movies where you look at it and you go, why? And
Indeed.
apparently they never answered that question.
Yeah.
But what was the 30 minutes that you liked?
I firmly believe that because everything seems to be going on to streaming now with what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of doing the films, spending $200 million for a film, which was shit, maybe they should do take the Disney kind of model and go into streaming. I would have no problem watching Gal Gadot or Gal Gadot and Chris Pine in a Wonder Woman TV series
Mm-hmm.
like the 70s.
Right.
I think that would work very well because those Chris Pine carried the film.
I figured you
Uh,
would.
Gal Gadot, they didn't give her anything to do.
Uh-huh.
There was I would. Everybody wanted this to be good.
Mm-hmm.
So much goodwill from the first one.
Mm-hmm.
Even the drinker said essentially that, didn't he?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He was hoping that this would be good. And if there was a time when the world needed something entertaining, it was now. And
right.
there was too much man bashing, smash the patriarchy and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
All men who lived in New York in the 80s were either drunk white rapists who hung around streets a lot.
That's what everybody says in their reviews.
Yeah.
And I'm like, was it really that noticeable? It must have been really that noticeable.
Pedro Pascal wasn't the true villain. It was this one guy who kept cropping up with his bottle of wine in his hand and his long overcoat, who kept getting twatted by everybody. He was the real villain. He was the real. I don't know the guy who was. He was the real villain of the film.
Well, he can put that on his resume now.
yeah. Kirsten Wiig, while I think she's sorry everybody, I'm going to be toxic white male. While she's very attractive, I think she's the most annoying actor ever. And everybody says she was just playing herself.
Right. Well, that's all she can play. She has an extremely limited range. I've seen her sort of step a quarter to the side, maybe in different roles. But I enjoy her playing herself. But the thing is I don't enjoy that in a superhero movie, right? In a superhero movie, you've got to have people flying around. You've got to have, huge, big moral conflicts. You don't need goofiness, right? And that's all she can play. And of course, I mean, peace be upon her. She, her agent should have seen what the disaster that Ghostbusters was, and said, you know what, we're just going to move you away from these sort of like remake / action type movies, and we're going to keep you in, romantic comedies and Saturday Night Live, spin-offs and things like that. And you'd have a very good career. She'd have a very good career, but I'm like I said, I'm glad I missed that movie.
I don't even think she was needed in the film.
No,
it was a shame. It was a shame. Everybody wanted this to be good,
right?
And
right.
The scenes, but as I said, the scenes between Pine and Godot, there's chemistry between them two.
Yeah, and maybe even, I didn't see it, but maybe even a lot of that was dripping over from the last movie. I thought the last movie, the first Wonder Woman was
really good,
shockingly good. Yeah, it was really good. It was one of the better, I'd say definitely one of the top 5 superhero movies that's ever been made, and certainly that's coming out nowadays, and that they couldn't replicate that. It's baffling to me, because I think that some people really wanted to try. This is the thing. This is the sense that I get now. Now we've got Doomcock talking about the war inside of Disney, which seems to be.
Yeah, I saw the video. Yes.
Yeah, I think you've got a lot of that going on in all of these studios, where you have a certain amount of people who go, look, I am here for the profit. Why are we losing billions of dollars? They're finally figuring out we've got to come up with a new formula, and they're sort of trying to right the ship, but it's like. It's like driving the Titanic. It's not going to turn on a dime because the place has been infiltrated. Number one, and they run on sort of how should I say it? Flawed metrics, right? Where they say we're data driven. Well, if you're looking at the data on Twitter, you're going to get a completely different sense of what the audience actually wants. We see this in political polling in the United States, and I think maybe even in Britain too, where it was like, oh, Brexit's never going to pass, and then Brexit passes. Oh, Trump's never going to get elected. Well, it's because people don't want to admit or
People
put
lie.
themselves up. Right. They're going to say, yeah, whatever. They're just going to go along with the orthodoxy or the, received wisdom. But then
Agreed.
in the privacy of their own home, they're going to shut off Wonder Woman 1984, or they're going to shut off, Hillary Clinton or whatever. And that's kind of where we're at, is where people are receding to a private castle. And that's where these leaders in pop culture really should be saying, hey, we could make $1 billion. And that's this Luke Skywalker thing. I think we hinted around it. I didn't know the big reveal, so thank you for sparing me last week.
Have you seen it then?
I will tell you, I have not seen the whole thing. I watched the relevant clips because I'll tell you,
That was a moment.
Mr. Brown.
That was a moment.
Yes, but I am. What's the word that Gary Beekler uses? I mean, I'm cute. Well, no, I'm cured of Star Wars. I was a diehard fan. And they have sufficiently destroyed my interest and my love in the idea, the universe of Star Wars. I still will always, love those 3 movies, but so it's like if I'm going to spend time sitting there watching The Mandalorian, I don't care. Really,
they treated you like rubbish.
Yes, and I repaying them
because they thought that instead of these new films, let's do these new films for white middle-aged men and women as well, who have got plenty of money and disposable income in the bank. Let's aim the film for those, or let's aim it for the politically correct social justice starting out in life people who have not got a lot of disposable income. Let's aim it towards them and virtue signal at the same time. Which one should we choose? A, we would make lots of money. B, not so much money. They chose wrong, didn't they?
They did, as the
and they're realizing
Knight.
Yeah, they're realizing that now.
Yeah, as the Crusader Knight in Indiana Jones would say, they chose poorly. I think, but and this is a whole other topic to get into. But I think that it was intentional. I don't think that it was just stupidity. I think that
also, yes,
knew what they were doing.
Yes,
but you can only go on so long as a for-profit corporation not making any profit, and so something has to give. And this is another reason why I'm very optimistic in this culture war, because in the end, profit motive wins out. In the end, you have to make something that people want, or your cameras stop rolling. You can't pay your electricity bill.
Question to you, if I may: if Disney came out with a press conference or a written apology saying we fucked up, we truly apologize unreservedly, how would you feel about that?
I would feel like it was a good start, a very good start. I would need to see, I didn't steal any of this from Doomcock here, but I mean, I would need to see Abrams, Kurtzman, Kennedy, all of those people immediately cashiered. And I would need to see a new creative team come in. I would, at this point, the only thing that would really light my fire would be if they said, we're bringing in Timothy Zahn to consult on rebooting the entire, extended, the new trilogy. I'd say, okay, now you've got my attention, because, and I tell you, yeah, you're right. Those younger people, bless their souls, it's like there's nothing more that I would want to do than share the thing that I loved, Star Wars, with the younger generation. People say, oh, look at those old farts, look at those 40-year-old, 50-year-old white males. They just want to fanboy out and this and that. And you can, like you mentioned, we're the ones that have the money and the loyalty that would support the company.
What is wrong with that?
Right. Nothing.
Sorry. No, go on. Sorry.
Nothing is wrong with that. But it's like, and at the same time, we're the ones, you and I and Doomcock are the ones to bring the younger generation in. it's not up to the company to cut us loose in the rowboat and then find a new crew. You know,
Yeah.
like in Event Horizon or something. This is like you know, like for example, my daughter, she absolutely loves Chewbacca. Like I cannot figure out why, but she, you know,
Okay.
it's her favorite character of all time.
Yeah.
And there's nothing more that I love than sitting down with her and showing her clips of Chewbacca in the original series. You know, now and then she comes up with, you know, oh, this is Chewbacca from the Solo story. I'm like, no, sweetie, this isn't the real Chewbacca. And now we've got to sort of explain how and why this is. But it's like I want to be able to transmit that love that she has, that budding curiosity for this dynamic, interesting, lovable character.
Okay.
But Disney to do that because they have literally shut the door in my face.
You know where it, with regards your daughter, and you say, no, this is, you know, the real one, blah blah blah. You shouldn't have been in a position to say that. It boils down to everything boils down to this: good writing, and there wasn't good writing. You could have these films, if they were written well. They could have been very, very good transitional films, but instead, we just had the Wonder Ray, the bestest ever, shoved down our throats straight away.
Yeah, I am not a narrative genius by any stretch of the imagination, but what I expected with these trilogies, I went and watched the first one in the theater. I didn't watch the other two at all and never will, but like I expected, like you said, that it would be a transitional trilogy, that we would be that we would experience our heroes, yours and mine, Luke and Leia and Han and Chewie, and then be introduced to a new set of heroes that would then have the torch passed to them, the same way that in like Star Wars Episode 4 we saw, you know, like we heard about Bail Organa, we saw Mon Mothma and General Dodonna, and we saw some of these characters that we knew had a past, but that it was passed on to our younger heroes that we fell in love with. And I figured that would happen, but instead, like, you know, Han is dead. Okay, look, I mean, I didn't watch the entire Mandalorian, and I didn't even watch this whole episode with Luke. But I believe that I would not have been one of those people that was affected. I would have been dead inside, right? Because, for example, you know. But look, Mr. Brown.
Yeah. I know.
I'm just telling you for myself,
I know,
and it's not because I'm an unfeeling human being, but it's because like when they killed Han Solo, it was the most callous, the most coarse, the most obscene death that shocked me to my absolute core. In the same way that, you know, Mr. Star Wars Theory was moved to emotion, the Doomcock was moved to emotion by seeing Luke again. That was the inverse emotion that I had seeing Han killed, and I don't know if I could come back from that. You know,
I don't know until you try.
I don't know until I try, but I'm not going to give him my head candy.
I know, mate. I know.
You know,
because I know. As I was, I don't know if I told you, I was on a Doomcock stream on that very night with the Mandalorian, and he had about 5 Star Wars channels on his Friday night show, and I just said, "Yeah, can I come on?" Just to kind of give the British point of view. He goes, "Yeah, all right then." So I'm just, I get it. I get it totally. Yeah. As I said, I'm Star Trek. Don't get me wrong, but I do like Star Wars. Yeah, I was there in the 80s with those amazing films. The Empire Strikes Back is a masterpiece. It's amazing. It's amazing. I was there. Trust me, I was there. But I always liked James T. Yeah. And I'm just sat there listening to these guys, and it was almost like 5 guys who are in a group where toxic white males who are just getting kicked from every direction at the moment. Yeah. And the last thing you want is your entertainment to kick you in the bollocks as well.
Right.
And which is what Star Wars has been doing. Toxic white males just seem to be the easy target for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm afraid to say, everybody who's listening to this, us toxic white males have feelings. I think maybe when you're putting the boot in, you should realise that we're not just an empty, faceless kind of effigy of something to boot shit out of. We've got feelings too.
Right.
We're just an easy target, and yeah, as I said, I'm listening to these guys, and these guys, these guys are like you, totally into it,
Mm-hmm.
and I could tell, and it was almost like I felt like when I saw Luke, I felt 15 again,
Mm-hmm.
and it was like yes, but
Mm-hmm.
listening to these guys, grown men, um, feel like they're just teenagers again. It was great, and I totally get it. And Disney have, I hope Disney are realizing they're in a position to entertain us, not to tell us what is right or wrong, in their opinion, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
They are there to entertain the customers, the paying customers. And if they want to, if they would rather go on data and metrics of fucking Twitter, well, I think they're in a very, very bad place. But let's hope this Luke Sky, we'll call it the Luke Skywalker incident. Let's just hope it's a change in direction. Anyway,
Well, we can hope. We can hope.
we can
I mean, my hope springs
a
eternal.
new hope, mate. A new
A new
hope.
hope. A new hope. Um, and like others have said, Star Wars is at least has a pulse, where the other franchises are
I've given
pretty
up on
much
I've
dead.
given up on Discovery. I've stopped watching it. It's just it's not good.
Yeah, I mean, there was a free episode of Discovery. I think it was season 2, for first episode, and I got made it through. This was before I was really even like okay, yeah, I got to hear what Duke Cox got to say. I got to hear what
Yeah,
Nerdrat's got to say. I
yeah.
was on my own, and I was just watching this, because I knew that it was sort of bad and it had been panned, but I was like, this is like really terrible. This is like high school play level writing and acting on a $1 million set. It was bizarre. It was
Yeah.
really quite odd, um, to witness. But yeah, for me, okay, and I've told you before, I'm as much of a Star Trek fan as I am a Star Wars fan. I'm not. I wouldn't say I'm like a Trekkie or anything, but I know the
Yeah.
lore and I've been around. And in that first movie, that first J.J. Abrams movie, which I was very excited about, when I saw Vulcan get destroyed,
Yes.
I just sort of like sat back. It snapped my suspension of disbelief like an Achilles tendon,
Oh dear.
just like wham. It was that sudden. It was that noticeable, and it was like, okay, this isn't Star Trek, because you can't have Star Trek without Vulcan. And then later on, they're like, oh yeah, and by the way, Romulus was also destroyed, and I'm like, oh okay, and why not the Klingon homeworld, and why don't we have Alpha Centauri? Why doesn't everything just blow up? And after that, it was just kind of like I was eating popcorn and having fun, sitting with friends until the movie was over, and then it was just like, but nothing good ever came after that. It just got worse and worse.
It did. It
Um,
did.
and so that's the way I am. I'm very, I guess you could say, intolerant with protection of my head canon. And so when that kind of thing happens, I just get really weirded out, um, and just back off of the whole franchise altogether. But I will say, and maybe we can talk about this if you've got time, because I was meaning to ask you last week, because we talked about Voyager a little bit, but we didn't talk about Enterprise.
Okay. Shall
and
we do this, Commander? Shall we?
yeah,
We're at 1 hour, and
hmm
as we said before, 1 hour
1 hour is
one
good.
hour snippets seem to be the way to work, don't they?
I
Shall
think so.
we? Shall we take 5
Hmm.
and then come back and continue with volume 2?
That would be good. Yeah, that would be good.
Yeah. Should we do that?
I'll take a look and I'll tinker around with some of this end of
Okay.
broadcast stuff, and we'll see.
Okay. So
Yeah.
I'm going to make another coffee.
Okay.
So I think what you will need to do is you will need to end this broadcast,
Hmm.
and then email me another link for another. You'll need to
A new
set.
stream.
Yeah,
Yep.
and then as I said, with these you can download. You can do whatever. You can download the video or the audio, but it saves it to the server, so you don't have to do it immediately.
You do, you said, or
You
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 don't?
you don't
Oh,
so
okay. Okay.
so we can end now and then you can do that at a later date. So
Got
that's
it.
obviously that's the technical stuff. So give me 5 minutes, yes.
Sure thing. Yeah.
Set the studio up, send me the link, and I'll be back on you,
We'll do it.
and
Talk to you later, mate.
we'll talk Star Trek.
Okay. Sounds
Adios.
good. All
Adios.
right.